tips that you can start doing today to help your picky eater. And the last one is the one that is the most important and the most worthwhile. So the first one, which you probably already know, which is to stop pressuring your child to eat. So we're not, by pressuring, that also includes bribing. So there's a 2-for-1 there. So you're not only going to not be pressuring, like, have a bite, why haven't you tried some yet? You're also not going to be bribing them, like, if you eat 3 bites or if you try a bite, I will give you a cookie or a bit of dessert or something like that. We're not doing that anymore. The second tip that you can start implementing today is to get your kid in the kitchen to help you with the food. I will say less because that is pretty straightforward and something that I've been talking about for years. And the third thing, which requires a mindset shift from you, so it involves you putting in some work, and it's not that you don't already put in a lot of work, you do, but you need to put in some work with regards to your mindset rather than putting in work in trying to get your child to eat something. Your mindset is that you need to release the expectation that your child is going to eat something that you've put on their plate. Because when you have the expectation of your child eating something, Zozo, I see your question. I'll come back and we'll talk about it in a second. If you are coming at this with, I'm doing this strategy to get you, I'm expecting you to eat this food. If you're coming into mealtimes with that attitude, your child is going to pick up on that and you are not going to have success because of that. It's like if someone is trying to coerce you into doing something, you can see through that. You know that. You can feel it. It doesn't feel good. No one wants to feel like they're being coerced into doing something. So if you can take a step back from that, that's going to create space and trust, and it's going to release a lot of your stress and angst as well around mealtimes, which is a really important thing, which is why when I said that this is something that requires work and effort on your part, it does, but it's extremely worthwhile. And this is something that we work on in coaching. So my next small coaching group starts next week. And one of the things that we work on really early on is how to start decreasing stress at mealtimes. Because if we're showing up to mealtimes stressed, even if I've given you every strategy, which I haven't given you every strategy in our first week, I've given you a few strategies in our first week. However, if you're showing up stressed, it doesn't matter what strategy you're implementing. If you're approaching mealtime with, I'm doing this to get my child to do the thing, I want them to eat the thing. If that's how you're approaching walking into mealtimes, you are not going to have success. You just won't. Think about it in your own life. If your partner is asking you to do something and then they all of a sudden stop asking you to do it, like, I don't know, clean the toilet, for example, and they've been harassing you to clean the toilet for weeks. How long have you been asking your child to try foods? Weeks, months, years? And they're constantly asking you to do this. If all of a sudden they stop doing it and then they might bring up something like, so did you use the toilet today? You know in your head that they're doing that because they're niggling you to deal with the toilet situation. Okay, I don't know why I went straight to toilet, but that's what is happening with your child as well. So you need to approach this with, I don't have the expectation that they're going to try something. And those are the 3 things that you can start doing today. So I'm going to be live for a little bit. If you have questions, please put them in. Zozo OXO, are you still on the live? You said my daughter is extremely picky and I need some support. Well, you are definitely in the right place. Can you tell me so one of the questions that I would ask you for on a discovery call, even actually before we get on a discovery call, in the form that you'd fill out, what are the top 3 issues you're having? Oh, good, you're still here. Hi. What are the top 3 issues you're having? And if you can also chuck in your child's age, that would be helpful too. So I'll wait for your reply. I've got another question. My son will eat all meats but won't touch or try any vegetable or fruit. Any tips? Yes. In fact, I've got a client that I'm working with at the moment who we worked together about 4 years ago for her other child on a different issue. And it was her baby at the time. He's now 4. He was starting to show signs of highly selectivity and bias towards meat. He would only eat the meat, and he was like 9 months old at the time, and now he's 4. So I guess my question to you is, Marsh fam, how old is your kiddo now, and what happens? A couple of questions. I like to know, what are some of the strategies you've tried to help him explore fruits and veggies? So that's something that's really helpful for me to know. And what happens? What does he do when you've got that food on his plate and he's not eating it or he's ignoring it? So if you can send me some of those answers, because it's really hard for me I can't tailor answers unless I know what are some of the things you've tried. So So for example, a lot of times parents will tell me that they put the food on their plate and then the child just doesn't interact with it. So like one of the like super easy things that you can do with the food is to play around with it and interact with it in a fun way. So if your child is ignoring a food, you can start playing around with it. But again, remembering what I said earlier about not having the expectation that they eat it. Won't try new foods, won't eat pasta, rice, only meat. The only meat she will eat is mince in pies, and chicken, no marinade, only tomato or barbecue sauce. She's 9. Okay. How long has that been a problem then? Did that start happening when she was like 3 or 4, or is that sort of a more recent thing? Okay, thank you for being super detailed with that. So she doesn't eat a lot of meat, or I would say she doesn't have a lot of meat variety or flexibility because she's only eating it in like that one or two forms. And it sounds like also having quite a limited number of reliable foods, so since a young age. Okay. Zozo, I don't know if that's your name or not. Tell me a little bit, have you worked with anyone to help her? And what are some of the things that you've tried over the years? Marsh fam, he's 7. I put the same fruit a few days in a row to see if he finds interest and switch it up. He gets very upset when asking to try, almost tears. Okay, so that sounds like a little bit of anxiety around the food. Has he ever been sort of pressured to try food in the past? Or like there's no nice way of asking this. When we work together, I have to be super, like, we have an understanding that I am a non-judgmental person in the sense that I have to ask these questions so I know what I'm dealing with. Have you pressured your child to eat and taste or lick foods like fruit or veggies before? And is that potentially why he's in tears when you're asking him to try it? Because that's commonly the issue that I've seen with families that creates food anxiety. And it's not about blaming you. We're doing the best that we can. No judgment. Yes, earlier years I have. I don't pressure and I offered food, always refuses. Okay, I'll come back to the always refuses. How old is your child who's Yumi? How old is your child who's always refused foods? Okay, Marsh fam, no judgment. Great, because like I said, unless I know what's happened in the past, I don't know. Like, there's always a reason children do certain things. Like if your child's crying at the idea of having a new food on their plate, like I know there's obviously something that has caused that, and knowing what that is will help me be able to help you, also help your child process what's going on, and pulling back on some of those techniques that aren't going to help, like pressuring, is not going to help. So immediately removing the pressure, but also, so for a child at your child's age at 7, and I've got another one over here who's 9, the nice thing, it's always best to deal with picky eating as early as possible. And I had a family who had an older kid, I think he was 10, ask me, is it too late? Like, does it get harder as they get older? Yes, it does, for different reasons, but it also in some ways can be a little bit easier. It's harder because children are more, it's more ingrained. They know I get a separate meal. They know I can push back and just get the thing that I want, or whatever the situation is. But at the same time, because they're older, they have a lot more comprehensive understanding of the world, and also the ability to have deep communication through conversation. And that's a large part of what I do when we work together, because it's not about forcing them to do something. It's about, we want to work together with them to help them want to try the food. And we can do that better as they get older. So I'm not suggesting you wait. I absolutely think if you know you have a child who's a problem eater when they're 2, address it at 2. I've got a few kids at the moment that I'm working with that are, one of them's not even 2 yet. The other one's 3. And the other one is, I've got 2 3-year-olds actually. So starting earlier is the best. But if you're at the point where they're older, it's not too late. You have to cook a separate meal every night. I just sent a DM to someone saying that that's something that we work on in the group, and we sort that out in the first couple of weeks. That's not to say they're eating everything in the first couple of weeks, because that's not a realistic expectation. It is, however, we can absolutely move to a single meal in the first couple of weeks, and that's what I do in my small coaching group. So yes, I've even tried to get her in the kitchen to help, but she isn't interested, won't try pizza, as too many things happening. isn't interested in trying foods we cook together. Okay. It's great that you're getting her in the kitchen. That's a really, really important step. There's a lot of different ways that we can help communicate in the kitchen and do positive exposures in the kitchen, which I'd be able to help you build on that in the small coaching group. The other thing to think about, I was just having a look, like pizza. A lot of parents, I have some kids in my practice who do eat pizza, and I have some that don't. And pizza, if you think about it, is actually quite a complex food. It's a mixed food. There's multiple different textures. There's multiple different items on there. Even if you think of like a plain cheese pizza, cheese and tomato, the tomato is bright red and it can be clumpy under the cheese. And the cheese itself can be, certain parts can be really thinly cheesed, so you can see the red, and some parts might have thicker pieces of cheese on it, so it's really thick, and that can be quite hard to chew, or it can be stretchy. So there's different textures involved. There's also the bread layer, right? The bread, where like in the middle section of the pizza is kind of soft usually underneath, and it can be a bit soggy, whereas the crust on the outside is super crispy and crunchy. So we've got a lot of different things happening here. There's a lot of different tastes, there's different colors, and there's different textures, even in the most simplest of pizzas. So pizza can be quite challenging. So don't be like, oh my God, my kid doesn't eat pizza. It can be really challenging. Okay. Even old favored foods have now been limited to eating to strictly few items. So Yumi, did you tell me how old your kiddo was? Oh, 4, and barely eats food and will only drink milk to fill the hunger cues. Okay, you and I need to have a chat. I have a client, I had a discovery call with her earlier this week. She's got a 2-year-old who's drinking mainly milk. His primary food source is milk. He doesn't want to eat a lot of food. And she joined my small coaching group, which starts next week. So if you joined the group with me, you and her would be kind of on a similar trajectory. I told her, because usually in groups I have a few families who are really heavily reliant on milk, and I have it's like some that aren't, and it really depends on the group. So depending on how many people I have in the group will depend how much time I spend in the sessions talking about it. Sometimes I'll spend a bit of time in the session, and other times I'll record you a voice note that I'll put in the chat just so it's specific to you and this other mum. But the first thing that we're going to do is we need to, and I told this mum, this is like the roadmap with milk. And I've worked with families who have kids that are 4 and 5, 3, 4 and 5, a family right now who's 3, and many in the past who are like up to 4 and 5 years old who are primarily satisfying their hunger from milk, which is really actually quite a dangerous thing in some ways because they're crowding out their appetite. They're not eating foods. Primary source of food for over 12 months old should be food, not milk. And the last thing is it can lead to iron deficiency anemia, which is very common in particularly picky eaters, but it's the most common deficiency in children. So that's something that I would want to work on with you immediately. And to give you a really quick roadmap of how we would get there, which is what I told the mum who signed up to the group, was we first need to slowly decrease the milk. We need to do that in such a way where we're not going to traumatize your child or traumatize you, because if you just pull all the milk out in a day, they're going to be it's going to be very disconcerting to them. They're going to be very afraid. They're going to be very hungry. It doesn't set anybody up to be successful. So we need to decrease the amount of milk they're getting to make room for their appetite. And then, okay, we've got, my daughter is low in iron, and over here as well, I saw he was on high dose iron in the past due to severe anemia. Okay, so the good news is this is something that we can fix. Okay, by decreasing the milk, we'll make room for appetite. And that's what's happening. So I've got a client at the moment who's 3, who is predominantly eating like dairy pouches. So and milk. So a lot of milk, but also just a lot of dairy, which makes iron absorption difficult. And also milk doesn't have a lot of iron in it. And it's also not bioavailable, which means it's hard for the body to take up. So it's not an ideal situation. So that's kind of the roadmap. We need to decrease the milk. We need to also have strategies. So as we're decreasing the milk, there's a period of time I usually say it can take 2 weeks. Normally it takes about 8 weeks, but in order for you to be in a headspace to be okay with this, you need to know that it could take 2 weeks for your child to actually start eating other foods. And that's a scary place to be. So unless you're like, yes, I want to do this, I have some families that are like, I'm too afraid to decrease the milk. If that's where you're at, you're not ready to make the change. If you feel like, okay, I am ready to do this and I'm okay with it being very uncomfortable for the first 2 weeks where my child might not be getting very much in the way of calories, it's a means to an end, and you're working with someone who knows what they're doing. So what I was going to say is if you are at a point where you want to work on that, you can, if you're on TikTok, you should be able to just like directly send me a message from, like, there should be a pin there that says like send direct message. Ask me about the group because I can absolutely help you with this. Zozo, for you, I would also say that from where you're at and what you've tried, it sounds like the group would be a really good fit for you to get started. You'll be very equipped with strategies of how to communicate with your child, especially considering they're older, for how to have these conversations to help her want to try the foods and have better positive exposures to foods where she's more driven to try. He used to like food. I don't know. The switch happened around 2 years ago. Did he move schools, or like did you move house, or was there a new sibling or something that happened around that time? Because those are pretty typical things that can happen around that time. If none of those things happened, it could be that it is the age appropriate, and it's not a picky eater phase, because oftentimes kids don't grow out of it, so it's not a phase. But often that can be around the time where kids start saying no to things. And when they start saying no to things, they can start saying no to the things that they control. And they control what goes in their mouth. They control if they sleep. They control if they go to the toilet. However, as he's aged, has become very limited. Okay, so it's something that is impacting your daily life. It is impacting his nutrition, given that he's had to have iron before because he's severely anemic. So these are all really big red flags. But the good news is, like I said, these are things that can be resolved and worked on and improved. Can he cope along with attending school? Do you mean with iron deficiency anemia? Can he cope with going to school? I'm not sure if you meant attending school with regards to the anemia or like with his selective eating. So those are all like pretty major red flags. No, with the program you mentioned limiting the milk intake. Okay. Yes, this would be something that, well, good question actually. How often is he at school? Because I have some families whose kid is there like all day, every day from like 9 to 6 or something like that. Or is he there for a few half days? How many days a week is he there? Because, yeah, let me know. So the program is with you and me, and ideally your spouse if they're in the picture as well, because I work directly with you. And the reason for that is it would take me months to build a rapport with your child, whereas it's actually a lot better. You'll see better results. My families do see really good results because I work directly with you as the parent. You have the rapport and the relationship with your child that I will never have. So me working with your child would take a really long time to see results, whereas if these are results, right, like they trickle down because they've come from me, they go to you, and then you implement them in your home. That's where the magical part is, because if I come in, I'm a person who your child doesn't know, your child's not going to listen to me, I can't like physically be there with you. So in terms of implementing things, you've got a much better way of implementing it because you're the one implementing it. He's there 5 days, 8 to 3. Does he spend time with you in the afternoon? So like from 3 p.m. onwards, is he having like afternoon snack with you and dinner with you? Because these are really good opportunities to help him with the exposures. What I was going to say about the milk, in the intake form, when you register for the group, it's going to ask you for some of your like history, like, you know, how much milk is your child drinking? When do they drink it? How do they drink it? Like, is it out of a cup, a straw cup, or a 360 cup, or is it still out of a baby bottle? And don't worry, I've had people who I've worked with in the past who have kids 4 and 5 years old that are still drinking out of a bottle, and we can absolutely move them to a straw cup, so it's not too late. We spend most days at home. Beautiful. So then what we would do for the time that he's at school, we would at the moment probably not make a huge change to what's happening at school. We'd first make the changes at home, and then I would say over the we'd see how that goes over the first week or so. And then by week 2 and 3, we would get the preschool on board and letting them know, hey, we're working with a dietitian. She's recommending that we decrease the milk to this many mils. And that's how we would do it. So we would start at home and then we would implement it at school. So he drinks independently from a cup. Okay, that's great. So we don't have to deal with a bottle situation. So that's how I would recommend. So we're not going to change up everything. So he's going to be super stressed while he's at daycare. We don't want that. We really need to get things started at home, see how things transition at home over that first week. And then after a week, maybe in the second or third week is when we would start getting preschool on board with decreasing milk as well and giving them some basic strategies, because obviously what they can do is limited compared to what you can do at home. They have lots of kids to look after. So that would be the difference. We can control what we can control, but we can control letting them know to decrease the milk. For example, we have after school classes and he only wanted cereal and milk for dinner. Right. So I don't know if you were here on the live when I said earlier about the separate meals. That's something that we solve and get on top of in the first few weeks, where we're making one meal for everybody and no one's having separate meals. You can have cereal for dinner if that's the choice of the family wanting cereal for dinner, but it's not that the child is having cereal and dinner and you're having rice and curry for dinner. He carries a packed lunch and snacks for times he's at school. That's fine. We can work on the snacks for school once we've sorted out the milk situation. That's the main thing that we need to sort out first. We have to lay a really solid foundation of scheduling, like meal and snack time schedules. In your case, decreasing the milk is a really big part of that. And then from there, that's when we can start building on increased variety of foods. We have to get a really solid foundation first. We have to walk before we can run. Dana, ARFID, yes, I do. What are your questions? Thank you so much for liking the live. If you can send hearts and double taps and hearts on Instagram and double taps on TikTok, that's really helpful. It lets the algorithm know you like what we're talking about. And that's really great. I'm actually going to restart my computer while we're chilling out here because I've got to do work later. So I might as well restart now. Dana, what questions specifically do you have about ARFID? Do you have a child with a diagnosis? Are you thinking that it's ARFID? Let me know what questions you have. I'm working with a family that I just started with about a week ago, or a week and a half ago, I should say. They'd self-diagnosed their child with ARFID. However, after us working together for the last 2 weeks, they've made a lot of, it's not even 2 weeks, it's a week and a half. They've made a lot of progress already where he was mostly only drinking milk or pouches. We've already progressed from getting the food out of the pouch and he's eating the food squeezed out of the pouch, which is a really big step. And he has interacted with and explored a lot of new foods. He's tasted a lot of new foods. He ate something from preschool the other day that he's never eaten before. He ate a graham cracker. He's never eaten at preschool before, and he ate a graham cracker at school, and that was a new food at school. So the first time at school that he ate something and he ate a new food. So this family, their child does not have ARFID. Their child has a very restrictive diet that we're working on. So advice for helping. First off, do you have a diagnosis, or is it that you think your child has ARFID, and why? It is, I know. This family have been really great. So when we work together, one of the things that a lot of people will tell me when we're talking in a DM about either group coaching or one-on-one coaching, they'll say oh my God, I wasn't expecting it to cost that much. The reason that my packages are priced the way they are, a few reasons. One, I get results like the ones that I just showed you in 2 weeks. Two is we don't just meet for calls every 2 weeks. You have access to me in a chat through my client portal that you can message me anytime you have questions. And anytime something's happened, you can let me know about it. And then I actually read them and provide you support during the week between our calls. So the family that I just told you about with the child who was only eating pouches and whatnot, they're messaging me every day. And I told them at the start, I'm like, you can message me whenever you have an update. And they've been sending me this is what we gave him for lunch. They're sending me pictures. They're sending me some videos. This is what he ate. This is in the group. We scale it back a little bit because I can't do that with like, not, the groups are pretty small, but I can't necessarily spend 3 hours doing that every day. But you give me updates. Hey, we had this for dinner, that for dinner, this for dinner. My kid helped in the kitchen. We implemented strategy X, Y, and Z. This is what happened. We had this was positive, this was negative. What do we do? And I will respond to you. So you don't wait for me for a week, because there's a lot of things that happen in a week with a kid. And when you can give me the updates, it means I can go back and forth with you, and we can make little micro adjustments to troubleshoot, which means you're going to get way better results and way quicker results. I think she does. She will get goosebumps, cry, and gag anytime she touches an unsafe food. Okay, Dana, you probably weren't here when I asked another mum this question. This is not coming from a place of judgment. This is coming from a place of, I need to know from a pragmatic standpoint of what your child has experienced in the past. Have you pressured your child to lick, touch, taste, put a food in her mouth? Again, there is no judgment. I tell families this when we work together, and I realize that we have just met on this live, and I haven't met you. You've only met me. But I do tell every client that I ever work with, this is a safe place. If I'm asking you questions, I need an honest answer. It is not at a place of judgment. It's a place of, I need to know what you've done in the past to know why your child is experiencing food the way they're experiencing it. Okay, so you have pressured in the past. Okay, it's not great that you've done that, but it is great because there are so many better, different ways that we can approach food and approach mealtimes that are not using pressure. And it's families who are honest with me and can tell me, yes, this is what we've done. The mum that I was telling you about who just joined the group, she was telling me, she was straight up. She said, yep, I've force fed him food. I've put the food in his mouth between his teeth and pushed it in there. Okay, that's not ideal. She knows it's not ideal. You know it's not ideal. And it's not from a place of judgment. It's from a place of, you know what? It's kind of great that you told me that, because I have a million ways that we can approach this from a different way that's going to help your child feel more comfortable and more at ease. Do you use a reward system? My son isn't easily coerced to trying things that way. Absolutely do not recommend a reward system right off the bat. And the reason for that is that that's an external motivator. There are nuances to this. I've worked with some kids in the past who actually do quite well with something external. It's not my go-to because it's external. We want your child to be motivated because they're motivated. We want them to try it because they want to, not because we've said that we'll give them something, or they'll get a treat, or they'll get this, or they'll get a Lego thing. We ideally want them to try things because they want to try it. We have the best results in our own lives when we are motivated to do something. Cleaning the house, figuring out your taxes, doing whatever the thing that you need to do is. That's when we as adults have the best results, is when we want to do it. And that's what we want to help our kids do. And there's a lot of strategies to help your child do that without using a reward system. So like I said, with some of the kids that I've worked with in the past, I could probably count it on 2 hands how many times we've used that. And it's really been, I don't want to say a last resort. It's been when we've had a little bit of progress with some of the regular strategies, and then we've needed a little something to just help them get over the line. And it's often actually with kids that have ADHD, because that keeps it nuanced for them and it gives them a goal to reach, but we're still using the other strategies that are not a reward system. I'm not offended by any means. I'm desperate for help. So Dana, what I might suggest, so Yumi, from what you've told me, I don't even know if that's your name, and I'm sorry, I'm just reading your username. From what you've said to me, Yumi, that you'd actually be a really great fit for the small coaching group. You mentioned your child isn't easily coerced. We're not trying to coerce your child. We don't want that. That's not going to get good results in the end. We want your child to want to try things because they want to try things. We can help facilitate that, but we can't force it. And when we try to force it, that doesn't get the results we want. So Yumi, if you're on TikTok, you can there should be a way that you can send me a direct message immediately. Ask me about the group. And like I said, with the group, with any coaching with me, it's very hands-on. It's not like you just see me for like the hour once a week and like goodbye, good luck with that. There's a group chat where you message me and you send me updates. There's a lot of support in this group. And when we're on calls, I can't always spend a lot of time with every family. We do hot seat coaching where I do spend some time with every family, but you fill out a very comprehensive form when you join the group with all your child's reliable foods, flavors that they like, things that they like, and then wish foods that you would like your child to try. And I have them all in my spreadsheet that I put together for myself, so I can quickly, easily glance over and say like, okay, if we're going to work on fish this week. All right, Yumi, I'm going to recommend that you try it in this way based on what your child's current reliable foods are. And that's how we do it. So there is individualized support. And even in the group chat, absolutely, is where I'm sending you messages specifically about your questions and stuff. So you said he's very strong-willed. I don't force foods. It sounds like forcing foods with your child is going to be twice as bad compared to a child who's not quite as strong-willed. If you haven't worked with someone in the past, I would say the group is definitely the best place to start. I'll also say that sometimes I have families that have really complex cases and they start in the group, and sometimes they do need additional, or they want additional support afterwards. They're seeing progress, but they still need more support. That is an option. I don't like to lead with that, where it's like, join my 8-week group and then we can continue coaching. Ideally, we don't have to continue coaching. It's there as an option. And I've had some families take me up on it depending on what they're experiencing with their child. So Dana, she will 100% shut down if forced. She's old enough now. We just have conversations and not just defiance. Okay. Dana, how old is your child? So Yumi, send me a message. I believe you'd be a really good fit for the small coaching group. Dana, I'm curious how old your child is. And you think that she has ARFID. She's shutting down a lot. I'm wondering, she's 8. Okay. I'm wondering, have you worked with anyone in the past? Because oftentimes, unless a child... there are a few reasons that someone might not be a good fit for the coaching program. Yumi, I'll get you to your question in a second. If someone has a really complex case, like I have some kids at the moment, I've got one kid at the moment who has ADHD, ASD, so autism. He's also got really high levels of anxiety. He's on medication that suppresses his appetite. He also has type 1 diabetes. He has a lot of complications. I cannot possibly provide the support that he needs in the group setting. So if you've got a lot of complications, you're not a good fit for the group. Or if you're someone who has worked with somebody in the past and you've tried a lot of techniques that we would go through in the group coaching program, I would say, you know what, let's just go straight to one-on-one, because if you spend if the group is 8 weeks, if the first 3 weeks of the group are things that you've already done, you're going to feel like I'm not getting much bang for my buck here. So I'd rather put you in one-on-one with me so that we can skip past the things that you've already done and just go straight to something new and different. So that's what I would recommend. You've done speech therapy in the past. I'm guessing they didn't do a lot of work on food though. So what I'm trying to gauge from you, Dana, is if you would be a good fit for the small coaching group. She's ADHD and dyslexic. Dyslexic shouldn't be an issue. ADHD, I have had a lot of families who either their kid gets diagnosed with either ASD or ADHD during the coaching group, depending on their age, or some of them already do have, like I've had a couple that have had ASD level 2 or ADHD and they are in the group. I have a lot of experience with those kiddos in my one-on-one practice. It's more if you've worked with a dietitian or like even an OT who's done a lot of food stuff or feeding therapy. If you've already worked through a lot of the strategies that I would go through with you, I would say it's better to just go straight to one-on-one. So it's kind of up to you. You've done speech therapy, continuing therapy, just looking for a new provider. Okay. So speech therapy, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that is doing much in the way of food, in the sense of it would only really be like swallowing and like helping muscles with swallowing. Probably not strategies to help with the picky eating, which I would say you would be a good fit for the group then. Okay, so the program is designed initially for 8 weeks. Correct. It is an 8-week program, and within that program, we go through how to rebuild trust with your child, how to set up a good schedule, like meal and snack time schedule, to make sure your child is hungry at the appropriate times and they haven't filled up on milk. If you've got a milk issue, we will work on that in the first couple of weeks as well. We'll get you eating at the table, not in front of the TV. We will help you. I will help you with making one meal for everybody. We'll also work on a bunch of different communication strategies to help your child want to try foods. And then that's really the first 4 weeks of the group. And then the last 4 weeks of the group, we spend more time doing like hot seat coaching, where we start working towards goal foods, because we really need a solid foundation first. My son goes to speech and feeding therapy once a week for his picky eating. I have not seen much progress once a week. Okay. How long has he been going? I see this. I've heard this a lot from families. I've worked with a lot of families who have either done feeding therapy or OT for picky eating in the past. 6 months, a year, not much progress. And okay, almost a year. The reason for that is because they're working directly with your child versus you and me, we'd be working directly together. I don't have a rapport with your child. You have a rapport with your child. I give you, it starts up here. It's like a trickle down effect. I give you the tools and strategies. You implement them at home with your child gets the benefit. Whereas if I come in, your child doesn't know me from a bar of soap. They are not going to have good success with me because they don't know me or trust me. They know you, they trust you, and you're the one that's going to be able to have the best success with them. So it's about giving you the tools and the strategies. I give you homework each week, which is basically, here's the tool, here's how you're going to use it. Your homework is to use it so that you can start integrating it into your life and implementing it. Because I can give you the tools, but if you don't implement them, nothing's going to change. So I'm there to keep you accountable throughout the weeks to make sure that's happening. It's been almost a year. So hang on, I had a question about my 18-month-old to eat fruit. My daughter was the same. Okay, so Chloe, is fruit the main issue? We're talking about some pretty substantially like in-depth problems here for like slightly older children. I have had kids that young in the small coaching group program, and it can be really helpful for them. So what I'm going to suggest, I'm just looking at the time, I've got a bunch of messages to reply to. What I'm going to suggest is, if the coaching group sounds like a good fit for you, send me a DM. If you're on TikTok, you can message me directly right now. There should be a little pinned thing, send DM. You can do that. I'll send you an overview video, although I've given you an overview at this point. The group starts next week. There's only a couple of spots left. It would be my absolute pleasure to help you and facilitate this for you. Families in the first few weeks will tell me that they're feeling less stressed, that they feel more confident at meal times, that their child is coming to the table, that they're eating at the table, that their screens are off, that they are making they're not making separate meals anymore. They're making one meal, that everyone is more relaxed. I had one mum, this really stuck out to me. She said that this is the first time I've enjoyed mealtime since my child started solids. So these are things, you can't fix all the problems in 8 weeks, but you can start to see a lot of progress in the first few weeks when you've got the right strategies and the right person supporting you. And like I said, it's a very intensely supportive program. You don't just see me in the calls, you see me in the chat, you send me updates and questions, and I'll send you responses and replies. So it is highly supportive in this way, because if I only see you once a week in a call, you can't possibly get me to help you with everything, versus no worries, Yumi, I'll wait for your message and we'll chat about next steps. My pleasure. I'm really looking forward to supporting you and helping you turn stuff around and feel more confident. I'm actually also going to sign off. It is almost noon here and I've got some other things to do. So DM me and I'll chat with you in messages, and hopefully I will get to see you and meet you next week in person. Bye.